Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geary, Stein, and Stevens Show, an amazing video podcast with sports stars, entertainment celebrities, and other great guests, combining one host who has no legs, one host who lives in Duluth, Minnesota, and another host who seems to never be on the show. But now, on to the show with Troy, Dave, and maybe even Will.
Well. Good morning, everybody. Ho, ho, ho. Already we're screwing up, but that's because we are live this early in the morning. Good morning. I am Dave Stevens, and welcome to the Geary, Stein, and Stevens Show. And this is an amazing day. I am so excited to talk about today's show and the guests that I have on. And as we've talked about recently, there is an amazing movie that's coming out on Netflix on September 19th. It's called The Saint of Second Chances. It's the amazing story of Mike Veeck and his journey through professional baseball and the things he's done in his career, and the amazing things that he's done for other people. Very selfless, and it's an amazing story that it's more than baseball, and the people that have seen it have been raving. It's been at the Tribeca Festival. It's been everywhere. But let me give you a hint and show you what this movie is all about.
Start at a 1, take it to a 10, and if it gets you arrested, we've gone too far.
This is the true story of a family of baseball hustlers.
My dad used to say, a hustler's not a con man. The hustler believes.
Bang, that's one.
All the fun stuff that happens at baseball games, fireworks, giveaways, you name it, they invented it.
We're going to do something that are going to make people sit up and take notice. It was street theater wrapped around a ball game.
What could possibly go wrong? 10,000 people on that field.
Oh, that's what could go wrong. This was an audience unlike we'd ever seen, in numbers we'd never seen. At the end of the night, I said, the old man, I'm done. I'm quitting.
The thing about second chances is you never know where they're going to come from.
Hello?
I needed a miracle to really get people talking.
Come on, try out for the St. Paul Saints, all right?
Little did he know, redemption is a two-way street.
It could not fail. I would come home and be scared to death.
You never let it show.
My dream was to play professional baseball, and thanks to Mike Veeck, that came true.
St. Paul brought me back to life.
When you think it's all gone.
I look at a baseball field, and every field I see has a piece of my family in it.
And with his two kids by his side, Mike shows them both how to be a hustler.
All that laughter and fun was going to save us.
This is the story of a guy who struggled to be a good son and accidentally became a great dad.
Nobody ever cheered for Goliath. What do you think? They were sitting in the Coliseum going, crush that little bum!
All right, and that, of course, is The Saint of Second Chances, and my guest today is the man who's granted all those second chances, Mike Veeck, and one of the directors, Jeff Malmberg. And hey, thanks, guys. I know you've been busy traveling around the country, all the premieres and everything like that. So it is so great to have Mike Veeck and Jeff Malmberg joining us to talk a little baseball, talk a little bit about the movies, and talk about this Dave Stevens guy that actually we saw in the trailer. So first off, before we get to Mike, because Mike will probably hog the whole half hour because you ask him one question and he'll just talk. But Jeff Malmberg joining us. And Jeff, you know, your lineage is pretty amazing as far as the things you've done and, you know, all the documentaries and the movies. And in fact, Won't You Be My Neighbor? I mean, what drew you to this amazing story to tell Mike's story?
Well, you know, I mean, it's just one of those things where you don't quite understand it on the front end, and you think maybe if I spend a couple years working on this every day, I'll understand it, you know, and that's really what you're looking for. I think when, at least what I am, when you're making a movie, and luckily on this one, it was a combination of myself and Morgan Neville doing it together and kind of comparing notes every day and trying to figure it out. And, you know, that's the fun part, is you don't know what's going to happen. You know, you don't quite know how it all connects. But I did know that we did know that there was some amazing, that Mike was this incredible character, but that, also that there were all these incredible people you met along the way. It was like Wizard of Oz, there were going to be the Tin Man, and this, that, and one of them was you. I would keep a picture of you batting, for the Saints by my light every night in the edit room. That one, yeah, one of them like that. And I just kept it there so that every time I turned on my light in the morning and every time I turned off my light at night, I thought about that image, So trying to get to the bottom of that, and you and Daryl and all that, was one of the real joys of working on this. Besides getting to hang out with this nutball every day, and talking to him and him making me laugh. I mean, there wasn't a day that I didn't laugh, my butt off on this film and think and feel stuff. So, I mean, it was a true joy. But one of those things was trying to figure out your part of the story.
And Mike, I just, we could talk about what you've meant in my life for all these years, but what was it like once the final product was done? You sat, I don't know if you saw it before Tribeca, you sat down. Did it feel like you had lived that life? I mean, were you happy, obviously, with the outcome?
Oh yeah, I mean, I watched it, and I can't describe to you the combination of feelings you have. You're terrified, you're humbled by it, you're constantly thinking, well, what will your detractors say? And there are all these feelings, but in the end, the thing that I felt most strongly was the fact that in good hands, real life does become art. And one of the things that Libby and I were talking about yesterday, and this is 3.5 years or whatever Jeff said it was into the project, is at dinner, Libby explained how if Jeff hadn't interviewed her, she could never have done this, because it's been, widely discussed, is that Libby was not 100% for this. And so there was a huge person in this to overcome her resistance to it. And Morgan and Jeff were great about handling Rebecca's death with the dignity and the grace and the style that Libby demanded, that she actually demanded. And she and Jeff and I forged a special relationship because of the delicacy that was demonstrated. And of course, for all of the people who came along throughout the film, as you and Jeff both mentioned, is everybody has a great story. And this is the story of every man and every woman. And for every Dave Stevens that there is, and for every Daryl Strawberry, there are people who identify and who have been down the same path. And I think that's what they captured so eloquently, if I will, is that it represents all of us at our very best, at what we can do if we kind of sit back up and take another shot.
And it's been amazing to see your journey, the history of, your bloodline in professional baseball. In fact, I found a clip of your dad that I really want to show that kind of epitomizes what your life has been about and what baseball has been about for your life.
Well, I happen to have a very ridiculous theory, according to many ball club operators, that it should be fun. I don't think that baseball is such a grim, serious thing. Sure, I don't want to interfere with the game, but I do want everyone who comes out the ballpark to have fun. And look, let's face it, often the ball game is not the most exciting thing that ever's happened.
Well, and that was your dad's philosophy. How much of that did you have, that passion and instill that created your juices for baseball?
Well, he invented, me and 8 other children, and he, more importantly, instilled in us a love of life. Later on, as you mature, or in my case, don't mature, you realize that he's giving you a blueprint not only to make a living, but to enjoy everything that life has along the way. And he and my family, we were joyous people. There was never any emphasis on money. There was never any emphasis on pretend success. There was just an emphasis on joy. And I think that what Jeff caught in this is the fact that at the end of each, I call them little mini segments, but at the end of Dave Stevens at bat, people go, wow, I can do that. I could do that. That represents a way I've always felt. Or about Daryl with all of the addiction problems that are happening in our country today. It kind of has a timelessness. But for me, it all came directly from my upbringing, from Dad. You'd have had to been stupid not to by osmosis pick up different ways to live your life.
And Mike, I want to get into it because it's such a, it's a small part of the movie, but again, it's a major part of my life. And, you giving me that opportunity. And for our folks that don't know, your dad had Eddie Goodell come up in 1951. A little person had one at bat. It put baseball in its ear. They had, they said no more people that size could come in. And it was weird because I grew up saying, I want to write that. I want to show that somebody of that height or that nature could do what Eddie Goodell couldn't do. And to be able to come full circle and to live in St. Paul, and you have the Saints come to town and all those kind of things, it gave me validation that I was able to go up there and do something that nobody has since and probably nobody ever will again. And I don't know what you thought you were doing when you allowed me to do it, but it changed my life. And I'm wondering, looking back on it now, heck, if we had the internet now, you and I would be rich because we would have really had a lot of publicity and all those kind of things. But, what went into your thoughts of allowing me to do it? I have to separate myself from this subject, but what allowed you to do that? And do you have any regrets?
No, I have no regrets at all. You have the very best trait of news people, of media people, and you were persistent. You were polite, but persistent. And in the back of my head, there was always this thing, once again, that emanates from my father that said, people can do amazing things. And the relationship that Darryl Strawberry forged with you, I mean, let's face it, he extended himself to you, and it shows. One of the major points of the part of the film is that if you open yourself up, and in your case you're willing to take a chance. I mean, you became a replica. You became a sign to people of what can be, and that translates into hope. And Daryl, of course, had to continually look at you over a month period and say, if this guy's so determined, if this guy's so joyous, why am I not? And I think that triggers one of the really important themes of the film, which is, as Daryl so eloquently put it, we're not really so important. We should just enjoy this life for what it is. But in the end, it's only what we give. And I think the story of Daryl and Dave, as I always refer to it, is about the underdog and how attractive that is. And people identify with successes. And I think that's one of the things that comes through in the Saint of Second Chances.
And for me, Jeff, I mean, it's realistic when you take a look at, here is my actual, the scorecards of me pinch hitting for Darryl Strawberry, me starting at second base. And my favorite part of these is it doesn't say the second baseman has no legs. There's no asterisk that says anything about whatever. It's just this guy for these days with the St. Paul Saints was a baseball player. And Jeff, I was wondering how shocked you were that I wasn't a gimmick or that this wasn't a joke, or at least the way it started out, it was just a couple of guys playing baseball. In fact, Daryl told me after the fact, and he's written in his book, and it's very, very humbling to me, the fact that, he said he was ready to quit that day. He was ready to walk away from baseball. The media was there and everybody was coming out, and he saw this legless dude and he was like, if this guy loves baseball so much that he's coming out here, it took some of the pressure off of him, some of the media off of him, and it really, I think it helped him. And I didn't know that at the time until years later that, you know, I kind of gave him that boost. And I'm wondering, you know, those stories that you found, Jeff, I mean, it's very compelling throughout this narrative.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, you say it in the film. How's a guy without legs play professional baseball? Well, you got to watch. And 10 seconds into seeing, 5 seconds into seeing you fielding grounders, catching fly balls, or 10 seconds into meeting you, you get it. You know, it's like when you came and we interviewed that day, it's like, oh, I get it. This guy's really the real deal, you know? And so that was one of the, oh, there you go. Oh, nice. Wow, COVID days. Hey, I got that ball right here, actually. Okay, go back to the one with the baseball.
Let's see here.
Can you go back?
Let's see. Do I have it?
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, there you go. Same ball. I keep this one around too. This is Never Give Up, Dave Stevens, 32. I love it.
Wow.
I wish I could have gotten that stuff about Reggie in there. I love that you were going on that run about how much Reggie Jackson meant to you. But, you know, you kind of shoot a movie to be about 6 hours long, and then it ends up being about 93 minutes long. So in the 6-hour version, we would have riffed on Reggie for about 5 minutes. I love that idea that you had that dream as a kid that he was going to lift you up to catch a fly in the World Series. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it's you know, it's those dreams and it's those second chances that Mike gave to people. And I can't believe we were 15 minutes into this, but we're going to take a quick commercial break so I can pay some bills. We'll be right back with Jeff Malmberg, the director, Michael Veeck, the star of Saint of Second Chances. So don't go away.
Hi, everybody. Dave Stevens here for the Gary Stein and Stevens Show from Tropicana Field, home of the Tampa Rays. And you know what? Not everybody can be a Major League Baseball player, but you can look like $1 million. What's the best way to do that? Well, go to freshcleanthreads.com. Don't believe me? That's right. You can look professional, feel good, and not spend a lot of money by wearing Fresh Clean Threads. They have amazing shirts. They've got Henleys and polos, long sleeves, and even bomber jackets. And if you like them, you can save some money by typing in the show code GSS Show from the Gary Stein and Stevens Show to save 20% off. So if you can't be a major leaguer and you want to dress like one, well, go to freshcleanthreads.com. That's freshcleanthreads.com. Tell them Dave sent you. Use that code GSS Show.
Yeah, don't I look good in those things? And I'm so excited to continue the second half of our show. We're going to stop talking about me in just a minute, but I wanted to bring up a little bit of video that really, you know, shows that we actually had a relationship. And I'm so excited to show you what Mike was all about.
My dad could dance. My dad could play tennis. And my dad had one leg to stand on. And Dave doesn't have any legs to stand on.
WrestleMania 3, are you ready?
I can't handle you, man. You probably hurt me. I'll be really out for the rest of the year.
What you doing? You collecting all the articles, huh? You getting all the top stories.
I was a senior in high school when you were a rookie.
Stop telling the tale. I know the importance of it, of life, of having, you know, the talent that I have and the mistakes that I made, and to see him, you know, out here, it's just should be a motivating drive for some of these younger players and some of the players that are in the major leagues that see something like this.
What would you nickname me? What would be your nickname for me?
Stud.
Stub or stud?
Stud. You're a stud. He's a stud, huh?
Yeah. I think that Darryl Strawberry looks at this guy and says, I haven't been dealt a very difficult hand when you compare it to this, and if he can always smile, they're teaching each other.
I'm just real thankful that, you know, that I came here to play baseball, but also at the same time I got a chance to meet him and see him, and he, like I said, he brings a lot of hope to a lot of people.
And I'm so excited that Darryl and I, throughout the years, have stayed friends. Darryl, of course, is a minister. The Saints just retired his number. He continues to succeed. And again, Mike, it's all about those second chances that you gave him. I mean, what made you take a chance on Darryl Strawberry, knowing the allegations and all of the things, because I don't know if he could have made that comeback in this day and age, and yet you allowed him to have that chance to find his baseball roots again and then hit 18 home runs with the Saints and end up leading the Yankees to a couple of World Series.
There was no question that, Marty Scott had forged a great relationship with Darryl. Marv Goldklang had forged a relationship with his agent. And the one thing that people don't realize is that my mind was made up because Libby made it up for me. She called me a hypocrite, and that was the nicest thing she called me. And she was right. The part that people don't realize is that, for example, a guy we're all familiar with now from the West Coast, Jim Capel. Jim Capel called me a week before when the conversation was happening with Darryl, and he said, if you do this, I'm going to tear your shorts off. And it had been such a large mountain to climb, the independent baseball, just to get our foot in the door, just to get some respect. And instantly I saw, this Capel headline that goes, Veeck's gone too far or whatever it is. And I was worried about that. And I was foolish. Libby was right. It was self-serving. I'm not going to mea culpa anymore. I do enough in the film. But the thing that Malmberg is very modest about is that when you make one of these, they ask you the same question in so many forms, in so many different forms with nuances, that you examine your own life and your motives, and it really becomes therapeutic. And so in this case, while I identified with Darryl and the image of the bad boy and the use of the word blackballed, which everybody knew would make me crazy, the fact is that you never really know all of your motives until you go over it and over it. And that was the surprising thing about the documentary to me, was the work that went into it, the background work. Like Jeff said a minute ago, it's a 6-hour film that turns into 90 minutes. But what it puts you through in terms of dealing with your demons, dealing with your mistakes, dealing with the things that you're proud of even, you begin to understand the motivation behind it. I never, ever signed you, Dave, to replicate Eddie Goodell. Eddie Goodell was a whole different thing. You were positioning of what people can do. And that's why the distinction to me was great, because after Jeff asked me the question 27 times, I'm like, what are you looking for? And he goes, what first comes to your mind? And that's how they establish some of the truths that come out. And I understand now, which I didn't before, the kind of elements of the filmmaking process. I'm an admirer. I think it's a tremendous art form, and it certainly is exhausting, but I think you would arrive at a certain truth.
And speaking of the truth is Troy Geary, my co-host, who's in Duluth, Minnesota, which ties in to what we're going to talk about next. Troy just got back in, jumped on. So, Troy, thanks for joining us. And say hi to Mike and Jeff.
Yeah, good to meet you, Mike and Jeff. Mike, I got a question for you. You brought in one of the first professional women's baseball player at Isle of Borders to St. Paul in 1997. Just talk about the process of that and all the stuff that she kind of endured over the years, being on a men's team.
Well, I had put out the word, from the moment the Saints had really been founded, and even before, that we were looking for a female athlete that could compete. And it went nowhere for a couple of years. I'd grown up with a mother and father who emphasized that somewhere along the line women would be playing professional baseball. And Nick Belmonte called me one day, and he had spotted a young woman at Whittier College who had pitched all the way from Little League all the way through and was the ultimate outsider. That was the thing that attracted the Saints, and specifically me, to Isle of Borders personally so much was that she was used to being the outsider. I gave her one of the famous Mike Veeck walks around the parking lot. Halfway around the parking lot, I just said, we got to go in. I was going to explain to her how tough it was going to be. She explained to me how tough it actually was. And so I realized, as I was embarrassed, you know, from having been shown up in this walk by this lovely 20-something-year-old woman, that she was the right person. And sure enough, she came out, and St. Paul embraced her the same way they embraced Darryl Strawberry. She did something to electrify not just the girls and the women in the Twin Cities, but I think all of baseball. And the unknown story about Isla is that she turned down every late night show it was possible. And she turned them down frequently. They had film crews from all over the world shooting her constantly. She turned down, you know, Letterman and all of the Leno and all the night shows because she just wanted to pitch. And ultimately, the reason that we traded her to Wade Stadium in Duluth was because she couldn't get any pitching time that wasn't being filmed. I mean, she was that big a story. And what I love about this documentary is that Isla Borders is going to get her due. Her place in women's professional baseball is forever cemented because of the work these guys did. Because she's she's an unsung hero in this. They talk about Ing, the general manager, and they talk about people on the field and pitching for spring training. But this is a woman who arrived in 1997. Read my lips, 1997, 25 years before any of the hoopla. And I think this gives her due. She's a remarkable, remarkable woman. Forget being a remarkable athlete. She's just a remarkable human being.
And Jeff, how did you, when you talked to her, and I know I've had Isla on the show talking about the death threats and all the things that really started to happen and that she had to hide her sexuality and all those things that she dealt with. I mean, did it kind of open your eyes to the process of what she went through and make her even more impressive as a hero?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, there are so many people in this film and so many aspects to the story that are their own story. You know, I'm glad Mike says that about Isla, and that was the intent. But at the same time, you could have kept going with Isla for, you know, many more minutes. You know, what she dealt with, the kind of person she is, you know, and that's really the joy of it. You know, she came and saw, it's so fun talking to you and, you know, having a chance for you and Mike to talk together, which I always wanted to make sure happened out of this. But, you know, just talking to Isla and her partner after the screening of the film and seeing the joy on her face of being represented in a small way for what she did, you know, that's part of why you make film. So, you know, there's so much to draw in this film from all these people, yourself included. And of course, the number one being Mike, you know, and just kind of, it's really a chance to show people what they're capable of if they try, you know. And so that was really, that's the fact that you get paid to do it. That's added bonus.
Jeff, I have a question for you. How tough was it to show Disco Demolition Night and capture what really happened?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think it was, we had kind of the directive of, we were showing it through Mike's point of view. And I don't think that's ever been quite represented. So to kind of see the origins of it from where Mike was coming from was really important for us, you know, because obviously what happened afterwards and what it became was, you know, nothing good at all. It was a bad thing. But, you know, where Mike was coming from, we felt it was important to kind of give context to both how it started and then also give Mike a chance to kind of respond to sort of the modern understanding of it. So yeah, that was, and obviously it's a key part of what Mike was dealing with. You know, my feeling was that he was still kind of wrestling with it. You know, it's something he has to deal with every day. So trying to kind of channel that into the film was key for us.
Mike, I mean, it's like we finally put this to bed years and years later, and now we're bringing on all this video. I mean, is it a Band-Aid every time it rips off, or do you disassociate from that? Because again, there were things out of your control as far as people climbing into the stadium without, tickets, and, 70,000 people and all those kind of things. I mean, what are your thoughts about that as we, see it in the movie?
One of the things that they forced me to look at was that I always looked at this from the standpoint of it was black and white. Dahl went on to have a tremendous career. I was bounced out of baseball, poor little me. But what I didn't ever look at was the modern interpretation. And Morgan and Jeff were adamant, and that's a word I don't use very often. They were adamant that I look at this through the lens of today. And boy, I was kicking and screaming. I realized what it did to my dad's career momentarily. I realized, the troubling nature of the fourth forfeiture in the history of baseball, blah, blah, blah. What I didn't ever really consider was how people would view it today, and more importantly, what they would think of the White Sox and us as an operation. And the idea that it would be homophobic or be interpreted as racist, it wounded me. And it forced me, because of the endless questioning, which, sorry, Jeff, but they really were relentless in their pursuit of, but what do people think of this today? And when I heard it come out of my mouth and have to, one, apologize, and two, have to acknowledge how it could be interpreted, it's not going to ever be a Band-Aid again, because that ripped me to my core. And they got what I had failed to face for 40 some years. And I thought that was remarkable. Painful, but remarkable.
Well, it's a positive movie, and there's a lot of amazing segments and parts in it that, it just, for the non-baseball fan, it's a great movie. I've had a lot of people that have seen it and said, oh, I don't like baseball, and I didn't know anything about it. So, Jeff, did it shock you what the response has been in all of the places like Tribeca and California and Charleston and St. Paul?
I mean, I wouldn't say shock. It's that's what you hope for. I mean, I figured if we were making a Mike Veeck movie and we didn't make people laugh and cry and come out with joy on their faces, then we'd done something wrong. I mean, that was the great challenge of it, was trying to frame around somebody who's so, fascinating and interesting. Frankly, I don't want to embarrass Mike, but, I mean, he has led a singular life. And, I think that our job was to really honor that. So it's more relief than shock, if that makes sense. It's like, okay, good. We got it over the wall. Maybe it scraped over the wall, but it got over the wall.
That was funny, Jeff.
That's good.
Well, I try, Mike. You make me laugh, so every once in a while.
So, Mike, what are you doing in life now? I mean, we've seen you traveling around. I know you're about to go on a slow boat to China somewhere in Pittsburgh, but tell me what you've got going and what keeps you still in baseball.
Well, it's obviously we as almost a perfect ending to this. We got an offer, as Marlon Brando so famously put it, that we couldn't refuse. We sold My Beloved Saints after 30 plus years, and I now am kind of trailing around the country seeking my past. We spent a day in the cemetery of my wife Libby's family. My mother is from Pittsburgh. We've been wandering around, and I'm kind of interested now in things that never really interested me before. A couple of days at the Warhol Museum. So I'm kind of figuring out what we're gonna do next. And I think there's a soccer team on the horizon with my son Night Train, and I know there'll be another ball club. One of the things that doesn't come out enough is that is that Malmberg's a Dodger fan, so he and I have a little problem after the '59 World Series. The Sherry brothers, Malmberg, and they whipped us White Sox 4-2 in the World Series, so we have a combative relationship to start with. But both Morgan and Jeff are huge baseball fans, and so I think somewhere down the line there's going to be a combination of filmmakers and washed up baseball guys and people that we've littered our past from, and we'll find a ball club somewhere that nobody wants and maybe acquire it and try some more gags before the last hurrah. That sounds like a good idea to me.
It does. Troy? Troy, you there?
Yeah. Sorry, can you hear me?
Go for it.
Yeah. So I'm sure you might have touched this when I wasn't on here, but Mike, I just want to ask you, what inspired you to make the movie? I mean, I know you and Jeff probably collaborated on this, and it's been years in the process. But what finally gave you enough, I guess, the green light to start this process?
It was having, a number of meetings with Jeff and with Morgan. Morgan and I went back 15, 20 years when we've been trying to do some kind of short or documentary about the Saints or about minor league baseball. It never got off the ground. And then, of course, when I met Jeff and realized what a huge baseball fan he was, I thought this could really go somewhere. Libby had to approve, and after meeting them, she really threw herself wholeheartedly in, which was a 180-degree turn. But the real unsung hero of it was my son Night Train, who said to me in a very simple conversation, he said, Dad, you look at being your father's son as having made it a little tougher. And I'm proud to be fourth generation, and I think we should examine 110 years of Veeck's being in baseball, and that had a huge impact on me. I mean, we all hope that we raise our children to that we honor them, but more importantly, that we listen to them, and that was really profound to me. Is he said, I love being a fourth generation. I love the tie to my great grandfather, whom obviously I never met, and even your dad, whom I never met, and you should celebrate it. And that's, in the end, I think what comes through in this documentary or film, I still don't know what you're supposed to call it, but is a celebration of 4 generations of people who just were lucky enough to do something they loved, they were passionate about,
Oh, Jeff Malmberg, the co-director of Say the Second Chances, Mike Veeck joining us. And Mike, it's been weird to watch this resurgence of fun baseball with the Savannah Bananas and the success of everybody thinking this is something new. The one thing that you never did and your dad never did as far as changing baseball or altering what the game was on the field. And I'm wondering what, everybody thinks the Bananas are new and all these cool things, but you kind of invented it. So I was kind of wondering what your thoughts are of Jesse and the success of the Bananas, considering you've been doing this for decades.
I think Jesse Cole is a man of his times, and I think what he's doing is phenomenal. He's introducing non-baseball fans to a game that, all of us, at least on this broadcast, love. And he's simply expanding the audience. I think Jesse is a genius in the way he has harnessed TikTok. And, it's no different than, in my opinion, the Harlem Globetrotters, who made a lot of basketball fans, who made a lot of kids happy. And they had to play the hapless Washington Generals. Well, who cares? It was fun, and that's what Jesse's doing. And I think he's just done a spectacular job. Big fan of his.
And Jeff, for you, I mean, seeing this kind of history repeating itself, putting this movie together and some of the, the pig and the nun and all these kind of things. I mean, what were some of your aspects of what Mike and his dad had going that really propelled you to put in this movie?
I mean, you get, in this case, like Mike says, 110 years of Veeck's in baseball. sometimes you're just trying to check that box, and I feel that way on Bill Veeck. You know, I mean, I've read the books, I've read his books. I'm a huge fan. You know, things you don't have time to include just will outnumber the things you have time to include. You know, particularly in this case, because it's sort of the history of the Veecks, but sort of funneled through the lens of Mike. You know, so to me, there's just so many things that this part of the filmmaking process is fun because you get back to talking about them. You know, we weren't able to include brilliant things like Grandstand Managers Night. I mean, it wasn't Connie Mack involved on that. I mean, the idea that Connie Mack had to sit there and go through Grandstand Managers Night is just puts a smile on my face, you know? So, I mean, it's the nature of the beast that in this case, you know, there's so much more to learn about Mike's dad. So much learn about it all, but really Mike's dad is the one there's whole volumes to be discovered. My hope is that it's only, you know, like you're saying with the bananas, it's like, it's a gateway. It's an entry point into learning more about it, you know? So if anybody sees this movie and wants to know more, that's a great thing in my mind, you know, whether they go and pick up Hustler's Handbook or read the great biography of Bill Veeck. You know, that's this is really just a appetizer platter in a way.
Mike, I have one last one for you. How much joy does it bring you that the Twins are still, you know, carrying your legacy on with all these promotions that you started with the pig and all this other stuff?
It's been very gratifying. I think the moment that every Saints fan first and Saints employee in secondary fashion enjoyed was when Dave St. Peter, the president of the Twins, and Jim Polad, the owner, both assured me personally, which I found to be really classy, that, and I almost quote, we hope that some of the Saints culture rubs off on us. And they both said that. And I thought that was something really important because, you know, look at the football numbers. Look at the numbers compared to baseball. And what we need now are all hands on deck and cooperation. It's a joyous game, and we need to sell it that way. And this, I think, you know, MLB, for God's sake, they supported this, and no one was more surprised. And I mean, they really got behind it. Obviously, I'm appreciative, but first, I'm shocked. And
well, you got to be shocked because it seemed like baseball hated you while you were doing it in the 90s and didn't like the things because this is a sacred game and we can't have fun and we can't have nuns giving massages and haircuts and things like that. But Mike, for all the beauty of this movie, is it tough to watch it and see so much about you and your daughter's relationship that it's like a Band-Aid every time you see it and it hurts because of what you did, but also the life that you gave your daughter? She was a beautiful person that just, you know, had just full of life and the things that you gave to her once she was diagnosed and the things that you gave to her. I mean, how tough is it in this movie, one, that she's not there to see it, but two, over and over again to have to deal with that loss?
I haven't seen it yet that I haven't cried for the last 10 minutes, and yet I leave feeling very uplifted. And by that, I mean simply, she did not die in vain. She lived kind of an exemplary life, you know, one that you of all people should identify with. She had several, you know, disabilities, as we like to call them, but she had several roadblocks and she overcame them with humor and with dignity and with grace. And I think she's very well represented. And I think that she would be thrilled. I think that she would feel like, yeah, I didn't really dig being blind, and I certainly didn't like leaving at 27, but I think some good came out of it. And intellectually, you know, she's joined the 27 Club. So I like to think that she and Amy Winehouse are hanging out somewhere because, man, Rebecca loved her, but Rebecca didn't have no voice.
Well, speaking of voice, we got to wrap things up because I know you guys are you're getting on a boat. And Jeff, what do you got cooking up? I mean, you've done so many things, and now do you get to take some time off, or what are you working on?
Working on another project with Morgan that hopefully will start soon, and working on some other stuff. So, you know, had my chance to make my baseball movie. Always going to be proud of it, and you know, hoping that I get to keep making interesting stories. You know, these kind really come around pretty rarely. So when you get them, you got to hold on to them tight and make sure you're doing the best job you can.
And speaking of doing the best job I can, you know, because of Mike and the things that he did for me and allowing me to play for them, it's led to so many things in life that I've been able to do. And, you know, being able to continue to hit with minor league baseball teams and work out with them and show them that a guy without legs just isn't up there to walk. And I can never thank you enough, Mike, for the things that you allowed me to do and to, you know, kind of change baseball history and to show people and showcase that, again, a disability is not a reason to give up on life. And you have allowed me since a little kid, when I saw Eddie Goodell and I thought, hey, I need to go up there and change that narrative to show that, you know, if I could get a chance, and that second chance that Mike gave me, it gives me that opportunity to continue to tell my story and to put on sports camps for disabled kids and to get to mingle at baseball parks and talk to players. And when they see me hit, they gather around, you know, the times I've been around Derek Jeter and the Yankees and all those kind of things. So, you know, as we wrap up, Mike, I can't thank you enough for what you've brought to my life. As little as it was, a couple of at-bats, but to me, you know, as I said earlier, when you look at the lineup card and you see that it's got Dave Stevens pinch hitting for Darryl Strawberry, and you see that lineup card, it was ahead of its time, and I don't think it can ever be done again unless Jesse decides to sign me to a one-game contract and bring me out in a box for the bananas. But you know, I've never been able to thank you personally, hug you, cry with you, and thank you for perhaps, other than my 3 sons being born, the greatest 3 weeks of my entire life.
My dad would have been very proud of you, Dave. Thank you very much for the kind words. And on his behalf, I thank you. And I'm going to go get on that leaky boat. Well, I hope it's not that leaky. And Malmberg's going to be an officer in a minor league team before you know it. So, you know, I'm going to ruin his life now. See you later.
You haven't ruined a lot of lives, but you have you've changed a lot of lives. So, Mike, thank you so much for being a part of today, and Jeff, thank you for sharing Mike's story. And I'm so excited for this to come out and for everybody to see it and for everybody to understand that you know, baseball is fun, and what Mike Veeck has done has changed the course of baseball. So, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jeff. Troy, hats off to you. We got 3 Saints hats. We're fighting you, Kansas City up in Duluth. I still don't get the tie to Duluth and Kansas City, Troy. You got to explain that.
Yeah, I always like the Royals, so George Brett fan.
All right.
Not a bad choice there, I'll tell you.
Quickly, Mike, why should people watch this movie?
I think they can identify with it. We all suffer the same setbacks. We're all very similar, and in this time of division, we should be celebrating what brings us together and what unites us more. And I think when you leave this film because of Jeff and Morgan's skill, you leave with the idea that, yeah, I can do it. I can do it. I've had a pretty interesting run.
And Jeff, will there be an extended director's cut? Because you said you've got hours and hours and hours of stuff. So will we see a longer?
Only in my head. You have to buy me a drink.
The world already has a War and Peace.
All right. Well,
all right.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys for being with me. Thanks.
Thank
That's
you.
Jeff Malmberg and Mike Veeck, and just spending a little time with us, Troy. I mean, it was amazing to have these guys on, and I'm so thankful that you were a part of it. And we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap things up and talk about what we got coming on in the future. But first, I want to talk about one of our sponsors, and that's, of course, Troy knows more about this than I do, but it's Betalytics. And especially now that the football season is here, we want you guys to go to Betalytics.com. Sign up for their services. Use our show code of the GSS show. You get 25% off. Troy, did you use this weekend? Did you make any money off of this stuff?
I made a little bit of money. Yeah, I did. Had some over-unders. Got 3 out of 4 this weekend, so not bad. I used Betalytics to get an edge there. So everybody, if you need edge on your betting and you want to get ahead, go to their website and use our show code, get 25% off, and it's great stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know if people have been using the Betalytics for the Colorado college football team led by the Deion Sanderses, but it's been an exciting season. So if you want to make some money, and I know the people have, go use that show code, the GSS show, to get 20% off. And Troy, man, what a spectacular show. I mean, wow, to just be able to talk to those guys and to get a little insight. And, of course, I'm excited that it airs at 3 a.m. tomorrow, so I hope you've got your alarm set to get up and watch that show.
Yeah, I already got the Netflix ready to go for tomorrow to watch it. I've been promoting it for everybody. I mean, excited to see it. I'm sure you already seen it, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, since this is a long show, let's make it 4 minutes longer so I can kind of recap what I did this weekend. We'll leave everybody on an emotional high. We'll come up and wrap things up, but I had the opportunity to be a part of our final D3-day baseball camp, which, of course, is the camps that give people with disabilities, seen and unseen, that opportunity to play baseball, led by Dave Clark and Doug Cornfield, and this is what happened this weekend.
Hi everybody, Dave Stevens here as we wrap up our D3-day camps. It's only fitting that we finish in Corning. That's where the Dave Clark story started. Of course, Dave grew up here playing baseball and hockey and went on to great successes, and we return every year at the end of the year for our final D3-day camp. Let's take a look at some of the highlights.
Not yet, not yet. Man, this is we don't want to tip it over.
Parents have been a part of our group in a bigger way. And they're here. Is anybody familiar with Parimala? Anybody seen her on Instagram or Facebook? She's pretty famous.
It's nice to come back home, Dave. It always is. And this is, you know, another great camp, another great event. And hopefully we'll continue this for many, many years to come.
It's kind of like a Dave Clark reunion almost here. So, yeah, you know, Dave is, and so are you, Dave Stevens. I mean, both you guys are legends, sometimes in your own minds, but actually you're legends to so many people. And one of the privileges that I get to do, and I was just sharing this the other day, and with one of our sponsors, is my privilege is that I get to introduce the Dave Stevens story and the Dave Clark story, and even my son Gideon's story, who was born with no arms. And we get to introduce that just because you have a limitation, that doesn't mean your life is over, and that you can actually reach and obtain things that you might and most people would have thought were impossible.
Oh gosh, they give her an opportunity to get out and make some friends and just you are 14, yes. And she loves to participate with the guys and just be one of the kids and just have a great time.
The ultimate goal isn't going to be decided by us. It's something that's just continue to unfold as things happen. Our hope is that at some point in time, P is going to be able to have had the opportunity to have an absolutely full life filled with joy and peace and no more trauma and just have a great life.
New activities and exposure to everything that this world has to offer, for sure.
It's not just baseball or hockey. It's discovering potential and what kids with limitations can actually accomplish. And just because they can swing a bat, catch a ball, or whatever, it gets them thinking, what else can I do? And trying different things, getting out of the comfort zone. And then on the other hand, letting the parents figure out, you know what, let me let my kid loose a little bit. Let me let him discover what he can or she can or can't do.
You know, why are they important? To me, I can tell you why they're important, is because I get to share, just like I said, the stories of Dave Clark, Dave Stevens, Gideon Cornfield, so that people can realize that their children don't have to be suppressed. That just because you think they can't do something, don't let that be known. Let them experience it. Let them try. Even let them fail if it's so their course. But let them have that opportunity. Don't take those opportunities away. And so when I get to share your stories, Dave's stories, we get to present that to people so that they can let that happen with their own child or young adult that's in their lives.
For this round.
Well, that's a wrap for our D3 Day camps in 2023. We were all over the country, down in Florida, up here in New York. It's been a great year, and I'm so excited to be paired with Doug Cornfield, Dave Clark, continuing to share our stories and to spread our mission of showing that anybody can do anything that they want if they work hard enough. And it's great to finally not be a target at these things. Oh! In Corning, New York, I'm Dave Stevens for D3 Day.
Oh, that was fun. I hate that we're going to Corning because that means it's the end of the camp season. But it's been a great summer, a lot of fun things, but we'll look on to go bigger and better. But, man, Troy, thank you for getting on here and driving fast to get on this show. It's probably our longest show ever, but, man, what a great show.
Yeah, Mike's legendary. It was great to talk to him and Jeff. I mean, I'm excited to see the movie. It just looks phenomenal.
It really is, and so we're excited to share it with you. We'll promote it and show you that, again, people that love Mike Veeck, there's a reason, because he gave so many of those second chances. So that's going to wrap the show. We've had a great day, and we were live, so that's great. Makes it easy. We're not live if you're listening to this, of course, on Roku or Spotify or all of the services that this show is on. And, again, thank you to your home TV and everybody that supports us. What were the numbers last month, Troy?
1.4 million views.
Ah, well, we couldn't have done it without you guys, and we continue to try to give you great content, and Reggie continues to come up with great ideas for guests. So thank you for being a part of it. For Dave Stevens, that's me. For Troy Geary, that's him. Continue to support the Geary, Stein, and Stevens Show. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Geary, Stein, and Stevens Show. Follow us on social media. Watch us on yourhometv.com, or now we're on Roku. Download it and watch us. And thanks for tuning in. Until next time, America.